Well, after 13 years, we have reached the last Airbender.
So it begins.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam. Welcome back to the Shyamalan Project, where I will be covering every Shyamalan film I have yet to cover in honor of Knock at the Cabin coming very soon. There will be a playlist link in the eye in the right-hand corner if you want to check out the other reviews I've done in this project. I've covered everything from his first film, Praying with Anger, up to The Happening, so do check those out if you are so inclined. But today, it's time because, well, context, we are still in the middle of Shyamalan's Triangle of Terror. We've taken care of The Happening. Now it is time to talk about The Last Airbender, one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my life. This gives me heartburn every time I even think about this movie's existence. But I could not do this alone. I had to find the biggest Avatar The Last Airbender fan that I could find, and I believe I have found him. This is the man who is so grateful enough to have me on, or I appreciate him having me on every Tuesday and Thursday for the Chatter After Daily, Mike Thomas. Mike, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. This is honestly one of the worst experiences I've ever been through. But by the time, like you said, this is 13 years removed from The Last Airbender. It's weird how I'm kind of numb to it at this point. So it's going to be really fascinating, getting into the weeds of this film because there's actually some things I like, but there's a lot that we all hate. And it's going to be fun trying to parse through that as we go along.
Yeah, so before we go into discussing this, why don't you tell everyone watching about your channel and what you do and all of that?
Yeah, well, on my main channel, the Novice Cinephile, we talk Avatar: The Last Airbender all the time. We're actually going to be having a video drop fairly soon about the Netflix adaptation coming up. So this is actually really great timing, right? Revisiting the first time they brought Avatar: The Last Airbender to live action. And hopefully round two is a lot better than this one. But yeah, you can find me there, and the Chatter After is a podcast. We're talking movies, and the Chatter After Daily, like you said, we're talking movie news every single week. It's a blast. This is a perfect merger of the two where we're talking movies and we're talking Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, definitely check Mike out on his channel. I will link it in the description. Go give him a follow there. And if you'd like to see me every Tuesday and Thursday talking movie news, go and watch the Chatter After Daily. But yeah, just for a bit of background. Oh, and one more note. He also writes for Collider, but I think he's too humble to bring that up.
Yeah, didn't feel very relevant at that point. But yeah, I actually have a cast and character guide for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix show, going up on Collider in a couple weeks. So check that out too.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But just a bit of background about this movie. This movie starred Noah Ringer, Nicola Peltz Beckham, Jackson Rathbone, and Dev Patel. What he was doing here, I have no idea, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. This is, of course, based on one of the greatest television shows of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on the show because this is about the movie and want to keep this at least under at least kind of short for brevity's sake, but I
Right.
think we both can agree that Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the greatest television shows of all time. It's kind of like Batman the Animated Series in that on the face of it, it is meant for children, but somehow it is more than that. Yes, it has very juvenile moments of like, my cabbages, and it's very over the top facial expressions.
Yeah.
But I cannot stress enough just how deep and how dark this show can be. But it's all handled so incredibly well. It's not just a kids show. It's much more than that. And I think you can agree.
Definitely. I mean, if you guys look closely behind me, there's pretty much an entire shrine to Avatar: The Last Airbender in the background. Yeah, this series means so much to me because it's the perfect introduction to the fantasy genre, right? Like this got a lot of kids, especially around our age, right, into Lord of the Rings, into Game of Thrones later on, because it introduced those fantasy concepts, introduces so much heart as well. Like, because it is a fun funny series, especially in book one, which is what this movie is trying to adapt. But it also just has great life lessons too, right? The journey of Zuko is one of the best redemption arcs in all of fiction. And so I think that's why the series has stood the test of time, which makes this movie even harder to watch once you realize like how important Avatar The Last Airbender is to pop culture. Especially, it went on to get spinoffs, it went on to get comic books, it's getting another live action adaptation. It even got its own studio now within Nickelodeon, Avatar Studios. So yeah, like it's very impactful, and the journey of Aang, Sokka, and Katara, it stands the test of time. They're now icons in pop culture.
Without a doubt. And just my personal favorite episode is from book 3, Fire, and it is called The
Mhm.
Beach. It
Yeah,
is such a great little story. It's a little away from the mainline story. We could talk about it all day, but it's a bit removed from the main story. But it just drives home just how amazing a character Prince Zuko is. Like you said, one of the greatest redemption arcs of all time, where he starts in book 1 and where he ends
yes,
is just it's just beautiful. And just the line where he's talking about how I should be happy now. My father likes me again. Just he's like rattling off all these things that are happening to him in a positive sense. And
right.
he's like, but I'm not. And then it builds and builds and builds. And then he's like, I'm angry on myself. And the campfire just goes bang. And I'm like,
Yes,
oh, that's cinema. It's an
it
overused
is.
meme, but that is cinema right there.
It's amazing. It's moments like that that make you realize how great this series is, right? Because they sprinkle that throughout there, and I think it's the perfect mixture for kids, right? Because it is still a kids show, but it's got those powerful themes of Zuko learning to control his own destiny. He doesn't have to be what his father wants him to become, right? And going back to the movie, Dev Patel is such a fantastic actor. It's a shame that we didn't get to see him get to those moments, because I'm sure he could have delivered a phenomenal performance with the character of Zuko. But yeah, I think Avatar again is perfect for children, but like you were saying before, it's great for adults too, because it has those anime like qualities where anybody can jump in and watch it. And it even having a beach episode is a very anime trope. And so that makes, but the fact that they were able to take that and turn it on its head a little bit by making it such an impactful character moment for not just Zuko, but also we get more insight of his sister Azula as well during that episode, which starts off as a very funny, quirky, kind of slice of life episode. And then it just evolves and builds, like you were saying, until you get these powerful character moments by the end of it. It's really beautiful storytelling. And that's why, to me, Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the best shows of all time, because it can balance all of those different tones and elements, for lack of a better word, and create something beautiful.
Yeah, you go into a show like that for the stuff like the cactus water scene, where it's like it's the quenchiest, like
Right.
silly stuff like that. But then you stay for just how deep everything runs in terms of storylines, emotions, and just where characters start and where they end. It's beautiful. That is completely lost in the movie. So let's begin to rip that apart, shall we? Just with
Yeah.
one note. Shyamalan got interested in directing this because Paramount tapped him to do it, but he came across the show because his daughter actually wanted to be Katara for Halloween. He had never heard of the show, but then found it because of his daughter and was like, all right, that's kind of cool. So, a
Yeah.
theme I'm noticing while rewatching and watching for the first time these movies is that Shyamalan has a lot of misses, but I feel like his heart is a bit in the right place. Like
Yeah.
it's like I can't hate the guy because even though this is a horrible movie and he's made some of the worst movies I've ever seen, the guy consistently goes into it thinking that like I said, his heart is in the right place. So I can't hate the guy. It's hard for me to.
Yeah. And that's the thing. His heart was in the right place, but also sometimes it just feels like he's a little misguided, especially in this instance. Um, Mike and Brian, the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender, were not contacted. They were not consulted on the movie, and that's why even in book three, you have the episode Ember Island Players, right? And the entire episode is a spoof on the main characters of the show are watching a bastardization of their story in that episode. And that's kind of like, it's a cheeky nod because The Last Airbender didn't come out yet. But that was them saying, yeah, we're going to go to this movie and hopefully the effects are decent. Hopefully, you know, it's a fun time because they had no input. And that's kind of a shame because it's weird. This is a very strange movie because all of the beats are there. This is adapting book one, right? Like Sokka and Katara fighting in the iceberg, who is the Avatar. They go on a journey across the world and they end in the Northern Water Tribe. It's the same story, but it misses all of those things we were just talking about, right? It misses the heart. It misses the balance of humor, the balance of character, because you come into this movie and you don't get an attachment to any of these characters, which is like the show's biggest strength. I think that's why it's so jarring. Am I wrong there?
No, you're absolutely right. And in my research, I did find that the creators, Mike and Brian, with very long last names, they actually were like, hey, if you want us to consult, we can. But all their input was like, they were basically left on red. That was pretty much their input on this. And it's a shame because, like you were mentioning, this is my biggest problem with this movie. It's vaguely familiar to the TV series, but there's none of the nuance. It's very stripped down. It's very much put through like the cartoon-o-matic. It's like this event, this event, this event, this event, this event, this event, with no bearing on just why the events were happening and what effect they have on everything going on. Like, and I know that book one of Avatar: The Last Airbender, it has quite a lot of stuff in there. So stuff is going to be on the cutting room floor regardless. It does suck that we didn't get the Warriors of Kyoshi or Jet, because Jet is so awesome. Like, I missed seeing him in this. But, you know, they're side quests, you know, stuff like that.
Right.
But it is sorely missed. And there are just several events where I was just like, it's so much better in the show. Like I was messaging you, like, Zhao and Zuko don't even have their Agnikai. They don't even have their duel. Well, it's being mirrored with Aang's freaking moment where he discovers Monkey Yatso, and that's just so powerful. And you got this happening on one side and this happening on the other side. Like, it's just like Dev Patel just looks at him, says some words, and walks out. Oh, in the words of pro wrestler MJF, mid.
Yeah.
Christ. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to yell.
You're good. You're good. Because was this your first time watching this movie? That's my question for you.
No, I saw it in theaters in 2010 when it came out, but this is my first time seeing it since then. I personally delayed it as long as possible.
This is the reaction every single person has watching this movie, because, and again, that's why it would have been best to we're talking The Last of Us. I know I'm kind of all over the place. We're talking The Last of Us and how faithful an adaptation that series has been to the game so far. One episode, almost 2 episodes in. I think the issue is that you did need to have a consultant, even if they weren't like in the scripting phase of it all, to understand what beats you needed to hit, right? Because Zuko and Zhao's Agnikai is an important moment for Zuko, for Iroh, and for Zhao. And the movie neglects it because of time. Same thing with the Warriors of Kyoshi. They're instrumental to the entire story. Like, if this was supposed to be a trilogy, you need to have Suki appear in the later parts of the story. So that's why the show is perfect for the medium it's in, right? That's why I'm glad that the new adaptation is going to be a series, because you do need to hit those specific moments. And if you can't, you basically have to rewrite the thing from the ground up. And they probably, like, Shyamalan could have done that, but you would probably need some guidance on how to make sure Aang's journey in the movie, make sure Aang's journey still hits everything it needs to without feeling like you cut something out. And I think that's why it's such a weird watch, because it, like you said, it's vaguely familiar, but it's just stripped of everything that made the cartoon cool.
Oh yeah, you hit it perfectly, and I guess it's as good a place as any to talk about just the names. Like they named
Yeah,
Aang Ong in this, and I don't know what the rationale was. Maybe it was because trying to be more authentic for a name like that, but it just
yeah,
sounds ridiculous. It really does. And then you got Ong, and then you got Sokka, which, by the way,
yes,
bit of a side road. Sokka is a block of wood in this movie. Like he is so they took all the personality
yeah,
out of Sokka because if you notice in the book one in the water book,
yeah,
Sokka in the show starts out as like this very sure of himself but could not fight his way out of a paper bag, like that kind of guy. But by the
right,
end of the book, he is a completely different person. He still remains his degree of fun and he's still the butt of a lot of jokes. But by the end of book one, and even by the end of the show, he is more than capable of winning a fight. Like here in the Last Airbender, he's just like, "Are you the Avatar Ong?" Like, have some
that could.
personality, man. Come on.
Let's just talk about that entire interaction to begin with, right? Like these are the moments that just like boggle my mind. In again, comparing it to the animated series, and I don't want to harp on that too much because we want to talk about the movie as it is. But in the animated series, when we introduce these characters in that pilot episode, we discover that Aang is the last airbender. They discover his name because that's how humans work. So, like, why in the movie do they go on an adventure? And then Katara's like, we learned that his name was Aang. And then once they get to like the Earth Kingdom, he finally asks, "Are you the Avatar?" Like, you guys should have known that 5 scenes ago. And it's
Yeah,
just
they
really, it's
learn
just,
they
yeah,
learn that he's the Avatar in the second episode of book one. Is
yes,
like Zuko even says, "You are the Airbender. You are the Avatar," and Sokka has the reaction of like, "No way." It's like it's
yeah,
firmly established in that moment that Aang is absolutely the Avatar. There is, and that is undisputed. And that
yeah,
whole scene, and we could do just scene by scene comparisons all day, but just one
right,
that cheesed me off the most was when Aang gets captured by the Fire Nation. There's a big old fight, and then he's like, "If I go with you, will you please leave the villagers alone?" And Zuko, because he does have a heart after all, is like, "All right, we'll do it." And then they go, and then Aang escapes barely, but then we see the Avatar state for the first time, and
yeah.
he's just stomping a mud hole in everybody. But here it's just like he runs to the ship and flies off in his glider. I'm just like, the Fire Nation are just a bunch of boobs in this movie,
Yes.
just ineffectual boobs.
It's yeah, that's what I mean by when I say they just stripped everything that made it cool, right? Because the action scenes, like there's a level of care in the animated series where they had a master come in and develop the fighting styles of each nation, like specifically. And in the movie, they don't utilize that. They're just kind of generically throwing like this, throwing fake punches and having After Effects come in to emulate the bending. And it's like this could have been a really sick action movie, like a fantasy kung fu movie if you really wanted to. And that's what I mean by they took the fun elements. Even going back to Sokka's character, Soka and Ong, they're boring. And it's like there's the difference. And it's so funny that the animated series was mature enough to realize this. You can be fun, you can be happy and carefree, but still understand when the moment calls for you to be serious. And that's why Sokka is a great character, is because he is a goofball, but he's also the smartest character in the series. And when he needs to step up and lead and take care of his sister and Aang and all of these characters that surround him, he's able to do it. And that's a level of maturity that this animated show had that this movie doesn't, because it's like they're one note because this is serious. This is the live action adaptation. It's like, well, they can still have their fun loving personality because humans are three-dimensional. There are different facets of our personality. There's the fun side, there's the serious side. So I think that's why these characters feel very one note. It's because they were developed to just have that one character trait.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did bring up the bending. Like, good Lord, the bending in this movie is just weak tea across the board. In the
Yeah.
series, and it's animation, so you can control things more. So I get that. But in the anime show, they were just doing crazy stuff. Like just in the battle, for example, in book one, when Aang faces King Boomy. Like that whole battle is awesome. Like Aang's like doing like tornadoes and stuff. And
Right.
here the bending just is like, huh, 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 huh. And it's like, eh. It's like, wow, $100 million. Clearly the money's on the screen.
It took 7 guys to lift one little boulder. It's just
Or
so funny.
create a wall.
In slow motion too. Like I don't understand. Um and I don't want to rag on the visual effects teams, but you guys just when developing this movie, they just need to be more creative. Like if they didn't have the budget for certain things, maybe retool how the scene works to take advantage of those moments. That's why Deadpool, for example, is such a beloved movie in the sense that for as little budget as that movie got, they took advantage of it. Like Colossus still looks good. Deadpool's emotive eyes and mask still looks great. And that movie was made with what, like half the budget of this one? And so you just got to be a little more creative in that sense.
Yeah, just looking it up on Wikipedia, the last Airbender's budget was 150 million. And let me just so that it doesn't so that we don't leave it up in the air, let's take a look. And the verdict is in, and it was 58 million. So
Yeah.
by nearly half, or not nearly half, but over half.
Right.
And Deadpool did so much more with that than it did here.
And
then
there's a 6-year time difference between the two. So like technology did evolve, but still, come on.
yeah, I definitely agree. But at the same time, like you said, come on. Now, I guess good a place as any to talk about how just weak Zuko is here. I mean, Dev Patel, like we've both established, Dev Patel is a great actor, so we're not bagging on him or his abilities. But here, like, he doesn't even have a scar. He just has some light little, like, shading off to one side. And in the show, you look at Zuko, you're like, oh God, your poor face. Like, you're like got the Two-Face like looking thing, like Harvey Dent.
Right.
And so and I don't know, it's just so disappointing.
It's such a shame because again, Dev Patel in this movie is my favorite part because throughout all of the nonsense that's going on, I can still see the notes of Zuko in that character. He's still the closest to what his original counterpart would be, right? And he still embodies what I think Zuko is supposed to be in live action. So Dev Patel, I think, with what he was given and in the movie he's in, he did a fantastic job. But you're right. The scar is barely visible, and the movie doesn't have enough time to properly flesh out that character. Especially, you're trying to do an entire season's worth of character growth and development in about an hour 43 is what the runtime was for this movie. It wasn't even 2 hours. And that, I think, is the ultimate failing of this movie. You're gonna like I said before, you're gonna have to just rewrite the thing from the ground up to make it fit in that time frame, because by going through beat by beat what season 1 does, you're not doing any of them justice.
Yeah, the blue spirit is here for literally a scene, and the blue spirit's mask doesn't even look blue. It kind of looks blackish if you really take a look into it. Blue spirit might as well have just walked on screen and been like, hello, and just left. Like, you might as well have not had it in there. And Ong in this kind of looks like a complete boob too, because he's lured in by some random villager that the Fire Nation paid off to look at all of the former avatars in past lives. And it's like, you look like a nice kid, but I got a family to feed, so money, thank you. And then like Ong is chained there, and Sokka and Katara don't even go after him. And in the show, they give a reason why. They're very sick, and Aang is going to get the frozen frogs to get them the cure. In the movie, like Sokka and Katara, they don't do anything. So Aang is just chained there, I assume, waiting for his friends. Is like, boy, I'm feeling the love in this room there, huh? So it's like, I don't know. It's running over the same point of just like abandoning stuff just for the sake of time, but it's so sad. It really
It's it's unfortunate, and again, like we've been harping on, Shyamalan is still getting there. Like Aang being chained up and the Blue Spirit coming to rescue him is still ripped right from the show, and that's where we get into the weeds of, would it have been best to adapt Avatar: The Last Airbender 1-to-1, or would it have been better for them to just rework the property in its entirety? I personally feel like this series only works as a TV series, like as a show, so you can get each episode adapting one or two chapters of what the story is supposed to be, because they're so layered. And the interaction, like we even have the line at the end of the movie where Aang Ong just looks at Zuko and he's like, "We could have been friends, you know," which is a line ripped from the Blue Spirit episode of, "I think you think we could have been friends if things worked out differently." And that has no weight in this movie because they've rarely interacted, and we don't really know anything about these characters individually and why they can become friends and why they eventually do become friends. And so it's just underdeveloped. It's also, no offense to the actors, they're just not that compelling. They're not that good. Dev Patel is solid. He's pretty much the only one in this movie. I do like what they did with Zhao, just because I thought he was funny. I don't think he was a good portrayal of what Zhao was, and I don't know if the character was supposed to be funny at all. But yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess of a movie.
Yeah, without a doubt. And just I and it was nice to see Cliff Curtis as Ozai in those few scenes we do see him in, but it's
Yeah,
like you might as well just had any other random dude just be there and it would have had the same effect. Nice to see Cliff Curtis, but like
yeah.
what was even the point?
It's There was no point, and that's another thing of changing things just for the sake of it. Like seeing Ozai, the show made a very big deal of not showing you Ozai's face until the final season, that final book, Fire. And the movie didn't have to do that. I'm not even saying I wanted the movie to do that, but if you're going to give me all these extra Ozai scenes, make them matter and make them important. And none of them ever felt like they were justified. I will say Iroh, or Iro in this movie, another name that is gonna just mess with my brain for a while. I do think Sean and Dev had good chemistry for what we were given. I like the dynamic between the two. It's just, again, we didn't get a lot of it, and so I'm trying to find some good. So I think Zuko and Iroh, no matter what interpretation, they're always probably going to be one of the best parts of the Last Airbender story, no matter how we get it reimagined. And that's no different here. They were still great.
Yeah, and shout out to Jason Isaacs who voiced Commander Zhao in the TV series because he
Yeah.
was fantastic. And then here you got Cliff Curtis who, or not Cliff Curtis, he voices Ozai, but you got this other dude who's like chewing up every piece of scenery, like, all right, I might as well just try and have some fun with this. Like you
Yeah.
said, nice to have him there. It's some levity in this, but just wow, just like the show versus the movie are just completely off, which is the running theme. But I also, it's funny you bring up Iroh because, like, again, talk about someone who's completely just watered down in the movie because in the show, there were layers to Iroh. Like,
Yeah.
shout out to, I believe his name is Mako. I
Mako.
hope I'm
Yeah.
pronouncing the name right. But he
You're
was
good.
just fantastic. Like, he was funny with the
Mhm.
whole scene where Zuko just freaks out in his room and he's like, yo, what? And the fire goes everywhere. And Iroh just pops open his fan and he's like, you should really open a window in here. Like, that's just a great little moment. But then
Yeah.
Iroh's also a tragic character. The Stories from Ba Sing Se episode, I believe that's the correct name, or if it's Tales from Ba Sing Se. But you just see him go to his son's grave. You're just like, bro, I feel so sorry for you. And just here is like, he's there. He just does some things. And so I guess that's what you brought up earlier to the argument of should they have just done everything to like copy paste, or just did a remix? They tried, they did neither. And so
Right.
we get this very great value, off-brand, non-union, legally distinct version of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it shows.
Yeah, that goes back to what you were saying, right? Just jumping back to Iroh's bit, and you were mentioning his son, Lu Ten. That is a beat that we don't get until season, like halfway through book 2. And that's my point of that is a very vital part of Iroh's character that doesn't exist in book 1 and it doesn't exist in this movie. But one thing that I love about book 1 is that even though we don't know what's up with his son, we know how he feels about Zuko and how he looks at him like a son. And so even though we don't quite know and understand his full history, the animated series still goes out of its way to develop that character and flesh out his relationship with Zuko in a meaningful manner. And this movie just doesn't have the time. The two actors are doing good with what they're given, but they're not given a lot. And I don't know. Like you said, you mentioned it being like the great value version of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it really is. And I feel so bad for the kids in this movie because Noah Ringer, right? He was brought in to play Ong, and he had no real prior acting experience before this movie. So I'm sure this was not the best time to have this be his first role. And he was brought in because he has a history of martial arts. And we talked about the bending, but can we just talk about how some of the choreography is just not good? Like even the Blue Spirit fight, when he and Aang are teaming up, that is just wind, which we can't see, and swords. So that could have just been all hand-to-hand combat, essentially. And it's still atrocious. And maybe that's just because Shyamalan's not used to developing major action set pieces. So maybe this was just an overall bad fit for him. But I don't know. Like, did you think, especially like we get to the change of, and at the end of the season, Aang becomes that giant koi fish, right? That kaiju. Do you think the changes were made where he's like just doing this big water wave thing happened because budgetary reasons, or just because Shyamalan wasn't comfortable with like the action scene?
I honestly don't know, but either theory checks out for me.
Yeah.
Because like we said, and I think this is a good place to like just put the period at the end of the sentence, but just the final battle, there was so much drama going into it. Just both parts of the I can't remember, it's not Sozin's Comet, that's the ending, but like I believe it's called the Battle of not the Battle of the North. I am really blanking on the title.
I mean the episode was Siege of the North.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. Both parts of Siege of the North are just so good and they're so epic because there's part 1 where Aang is trying to take out all the ships, but Fire Nation is like all the ships. So Aang is like, and Aang just like collapses. He's like, I took out a dozen and there's still more. And like, wow, so Zhao is not playing around. And then you got Zuko sneaking in, trying to take away Aang when he's meditating. Yep. And then you have the reveal of the daughter of the king, and I can't think of her name right now.
Princess Yue.
Thank you, Princess Yue. That's why I brought you on, so you can so you can check me before I wreck myself. But Suki and just the connection with her to the moon, and then Zhao kills the moonfish, and the moon turns red, and just that whole thing. And then Suki sacrifices herself to bring the moon back, and then Aang is just like, all right, it's time to break the game. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, select, turns into the koi fish, is like, Fire Nation, woo! The reveal of the Blue Spirit, and that's your finale. And that's not what they do in the movie. It's just like, it's like, what is Moses around? They basically do the Red Sea, like, and whoa, there you go, Bob's your uncle. They're like, damn it. It's so frustrating.
It's frustrating. And, I get on a technical level why you might change it. But again, this goes back to Shyamalan just not fully understanding the power of the story. Like, the reason Aang merges with the koi fish and the reason Yue sacrifices herself for the moon spirit is because that's a central theme to the show, to the entire story. And Aang, when they're developing their plan, and and Yue says this is the most spiritual part of the entire tribe. And he goes there and he says, maybe I'll get superpowers from the spirit world to bring back to save the day. And it's played as a joke because Aang is naive. But after all of that, he does get spirit powers to save the day after going through like a crucible, essentially, of going to Ko the Face Stealer, which is a huge moment in the animated series. And the idea of him coming back with the power of the spirits because Zhao kills the moon spirit. And even seeing Iroh like freak out and say, I will take you down myself, Zhao, if you hurt that spirit. And that just shows another layer of Iroh, right? Because Iroh's connection to the spirits is something that the show touches on later on. And so that very concept of not just the water tribe, but the entire spirit world coming together to stop Zhao it's powerful. It's very fascinating because you have, again, Zhao and Zuko, the parallel between the two. Zhao has this armada with him. Zuko is alone again, and he's the one sneaking inside, and he comes closer to taking down the Avatar than Zhao does with his entire armada. And that's interesting. And the movie doesn't understand why that's interesting and important to those characters because there is a parallel between Zhao and Zuko. And like you said, the movie doesn't care about that. It doesn't try and set that up because we don't have them interact hardly at all. And so it makes the finale of this movie fall a little bit flat, if you can even say that, because I don't think the movie ever started at a high bar in the first place to fall flat. But it's why those changes are just misguided. I understand why you would do that and why you would think, oh, Aang turning into a giant fish is stupid, but it did have narrative purpose. And like we've been saying, I just don't think Shyamalan quite understood that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think unless there's something that you wanted to bring up, I think that this is a good place to put the period at the end of the sentence. This movie's horrid. It's one of the worst adaptations of all time. It's like Dragon Ball Evolution levels of bad. And I know what I say when I say that, and I don't care. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, Mike. I don't know about you, but it's one of my
definitely
worst.
Top 5.
Yeah, but yeah, the movie's terrible. I have some hope that Netflix is going to do a much better job with this because Netflix thrives on series like this or doing things in a series type format. Or did you say it was a movie? I'm a bit worked up, so maybe my short-term memory has gone to hell.
It's going to be a series, about 10 episodes for the first season. Should be dropping this summer.
Or, well, in that case, I've been very nervous about it, but it looks like Netflix is definitely going to be more of the authentic route, and so I'm crossing all of my fingers and all of my toes that it is far better than this. But I mean, Shyamalan brought Avatar: The Last Airbender to a new level, that level being the basement, so there is nowhere to go but up from here. But oh man, but anyway, thank you, Mike, so much. Thank you so much for ripping this movie apart with me. Go give him a subscribe on his channel and his social media. I will put links in the description. Like I said, Mike, thank you so much.
It has been an honor to be here with you, Ryan. This is a terrible movie, but it's always fun talking Avatar, so I'm glad we were still able to have fun with it. My only other point is, please, guys, in the new show, make Appa and Momo cute. They're kind of monstrosities to look at in this movie, and we didn't touch on that, but like they're supposed to be cute, fluffy, furry creatures, and they're just not. They're hideous to look at in this movie.
No, they're really not. I honestly forgot Momo was even in this one. He's like you could have edited him out and it would have been no different. But
yeah,
and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But like I said, Mike, thank you so much. Follow him on the stuff that I will link in the description. But as for this channel, if you did like the video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe to the channel. Next up on the Shyamalan Project, we will conclude the Shyamalan Triangle of Terror by reviewing what once was the biggest skeleton in Will Smith's closet, 2012's After Earth. Oh boy. But thank you all so much again for watching. For Mike Thomas, my name is Ryan Cam. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.